Well, hey, Angel fans, welcome back to Halo Territory. I am Mike DiGiovanna, former LA Times baseball writer and host of the show, joined by my regular co host, Mark Trumbo, the former Angels slugger. And we are honored to have a very special guest today, Joe Maddon, the former Angels manager. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. No more special than you two guys.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So Joe spent 30 years in the Angels organization, including 12 as a big league coach from 1994 to 2005, before becoming Tampa Bay's manager in 2006. He spent 9 years with the Rays, leading them to the AL pennant in 2008, before moving on to Chicago, where he led the Cubs to the 2016 World Series title, breaking that franchise's 108-year championship curse. Joe returned to Anaheim in 2020 and spent 2.5 years managing the Angels before being fired on June 7th, 2022. That team was 27-29 at the time. They were actually 27-17 on May 24th before losing 12 straight games. And they have gone 254 and 338 since, a winning percentage of 429. So, first question, Joe. Do you feel a little scapegoated by an organization that has clearly not gotten better since you were fired?
Oh my. Honestly, when I went back there, I wanted to go back there. I wanted to go back to Anaheim. I had opportunities to go to other organizations, possibly at least interview for jobs, but I wanted to go back to the Angels because I was an Angel. I grew up as an Angel. 1975, signed out of the Wichita tournament. Started the next year. Quad Cities, Iowa, eventually become a scout and a manager. Saw it all the way through, saw the ascension of the minor leagues, eventually a World Series in 2002, and then just a real turnaround of everything. So I leave for a couple of years. I'm very grateful for Tampa Bay and, of course, Chicago, but it's like going to Hazleton High School. I consider the Angels like Hazleton High or even Lafayette College, right? That's where I came from. I was 11th Street, and I wanted to go back there because I knew what we were like. I knew the kind of player we had, and I thought it was gritty. I thought it was gritty. I thought we were fundamentalists. I thought we played the game right and hard. It was nobody wanted to play the Angels. Nobody. And ask the Yankees, these beautiful Yankees of the late 1990s and early 2000s. They did not want to play the Angels. So I wanted to bring that style of ball back, and I thought we were. We hit a bad moment. We hit a bad moment. Yes, there was a lot of things dictated to me within that 12-game losing streak. That was just the way of the baseball world right now. And so I'm not blaming it. I'm not blaming it on that. I'm not blaming it on me. We didn't pitch well. We didn't do a lot of things well for 12 games, and it stunk. However, I absolutely 1,000% believe had we been left alone, the difference in the record between that moment and what you just read off would have been dramatically different.
Well, it sounds like there was a lot of positives, and then there was a
Yep.
losing streak, as you mentioned. And I know that you had, done something to inspire the club, and it's been talked about, but unable to really showcase it. We're talking about the haircut. I guess
Right.
the question is: was there some relief? I know, and I'm almost guarantee you are someone who wants to see things through. So being let go in the middle of a season is less than ideal. But was there any friction with some of the analytics that were coming down? I know you've talked about it in the past, but
Mhm.
as someone who pioneered a lot of this in many ways, it seems like maybe certain parts of it were overdone. The meetings were going way longer than they should. I know as a former player, day-to-day meetings that last 20 minutes or more, that you lose the guys immediately. It's very hard to stay in tune. And it seems like you were getting a lot of pushback. So what was there any relief? You were kind of able to separate from that environment?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, you're right. I mean, I've been into analytics before analytics became popular. Even in the 80s and 90s, I did my own version of it. And when I bench coach for Marcel and then TC and then eventually Soch, I had my own version of it up on the board. And actually, if I showed you the work I did in that time frame compared to what's being done right now, it's very similar, other than the fact that more sophisticated now because they were able to scout every game. So that was the primary difference. And Again, it's not about receiving analytics. I wanted it and I asked for it, and I always post questions to try to fine tune whatever I got, whether with the Rays and then eventually with the Cubbies. I have questions, and yeah, I did question a lot of what was given to me, because your eyeballs don't lie, and then sometimes they do. And you have to, like, you make a suggestion or you make a statement, and they give you like a piece of paper with some numbers on you. I was wrong. I saw it differently. So that it works both ways. But with the Angels, yeah, I want stuff. I want information. Give it me all. Give it to me all. Give it to me by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I prefer it like in the morning. I with the Cubbies, I got a PDF in the morning with all their stuff. I would sit in a coffee shop on Chestnut, right down from the Water Tower in Chicago, little Cuban coffee shop, with my headphones and my iPad, and I would do everything. And they also had an app called Ivy. The Cubs had this thing where there's I could have previewed any batter, any pitcher in any game for the last couple years. Because I wanted to see when they gave me a number, a matrix number on a hitter versus a pitcher, I wanted to see why. And like the swing, plane of his swing, the shape of the pitch, all these different things were important to me, and especially when I didn't know anybody with my own eyeballs. So, yes, they became too intrusive. I don't like people in my office. Shoot, even an hour before the game. When I was an interim manager there with Billy Bavasi, I told Billy, I said, I don't want anybody in the office an hour before the game. I'm getting ready. I don't need any more interference. I don't need any more information unless I ask for it. You've already given me all you got, so that's it. So I think what front offices need to understand now, in analytical departments, there's got to be a time frame where you are permitted downstairs to a certain time. I'm saying 2:30, maybe 3 o'clock at the most. And then after that, go back to your offices. Go back, start accumulating more information. You don't belong in a clubhouse. You don't belong in a meeting room right next to the coach's room. You don't belong there. Sorry, but you don't. You have a job to do, and we have a job to do. And when everybody does their job separately and well, good things occur. But when groups want to impose on other people's jobs, that's when things start to break down. And that's what's going on in the modern game right now.
Joe, it's as Angel fans know all too well, it's been a decade of futility for them. 10 straight losing seasons now. They haven't reached the playoffs since 2014. Two-part question, extremely loaded. Why have they been so bad for so long, and how do they turn this thing around?
Well, I think part of it is, and I think Mark could attest to this, the infrastructure is not good. I'm just talking about basically the facilities at Anaheim Stadium, the facilities in Mesa, or Tempe, which got better by just moving from the ballpark upstairs. Eventually, the major league team took over the minor league facilities, which was backwards to begin with. So there's part of the infrastructure itself. However, I will defend, once we got downstairs to the minor league spring training complex, which was at one time, like I said, the major league was less than. It became better. I'm not denying that. But you walk in Anaheim Stadium and the locker room itself, and the way everything is set up, it's just, if you look at their weight room and training abilities, their batting cages, all that stuff compared to, I mean, I was with the Cubbies. I mean, the Cubs were the big leagues of the big leagues. That's just, quite frankly, that's what they are. And I mean, when it comes down to money, amount of money you have and how much you want to spend, um, don't just focus on bright, sexy objects, shiny, sexy objects. Focus on the things that are very non-sexy, things that really make a difference. And a lot of that has to do with how you set up your players to succeed on a daily basis. And I think that's where the Angels have been short. Right down to the locker room facilities, like I said, the weight training facilities, batting cages, Mesa, everything about it is substandard compared to what's going on in the world today. So I think it starts right there. After that, it's just it just arrive at a culture, arrive at a functioning culture and a philosophy of who we are and how we want to do this. I don't think that's been arrived at. There's no set way, which there was. In the 80s, when I was running the minor league system, we built that fabulously. Look at our record of putting guys in the big leagues at that time. Gets into the 90s, we made a good run. We fell apart with Seattle. However, we knocked on the door very loudly. And then TC, when TC was there, we came close every year. Finally, So shows up and honestly brings the Dodger culture there. And I'll tell you what Dodger culture is: fearlessness. It's real baseball. It's not worried about making mistakes. It's fundamentalism. And that's what Soch brought with himself. Soch's main attribute for me was the fact that he was fearless. It's kind of like David Parker. David Parker, Larry Boa, my favorite major league coaches that I ever worked with. And it comes down to one thing: fearlessness. They're not intimidated by anything. Soch never worried about answering a tough question, ever, ever. Soch pulled the button or pushed the button or pulled the string based on what he thought was the right thing to do in that moment. Lasorda did the same thing, etc. And I'm not here to glorify the Dodgers because I hated them. I hated them in instructional league. I hated their white uniforms. I wanted to beat them so badly. Right now Andrew's there, and Andrew and Show and whatever. But I hated the Dodgers. I did everything. I disliked them, but there was a lot to like about them based on just one word: never worried about making a mistake. Going out there and playing, trying to do the right thing in the moment. And if it didn't work out, if it was a good baseball play, so what? Turn the page. Soch is really good at that. So once he left, that's what you're missing. This level of consistency, set philosophy, whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. If there's a strong culture in place and people buy into it, if you look from outside in, people are going to accuse it of being wrong, or they should be doing this differently or better. But Soch never worried about that, and that's why they were successful while he was there. That's what's been missing. That was what I was attempting to do, is to bring back a culture of fearlessness, fundamentalism, playing the game right. Right now, they don't even care about minor leagues. They bring guys to the big leagues way too soon. They're always trying to justify the draft. Those are the kind of things that are getting in the way.
It's an incredibly thorough answer and much appreciated. It reminded me of the days at Gene Autry Park with Jeter Hines telling me. And so, to your point, he never minded the physical mistakes. Aggressive physical mistakes were part of the deal. He wanted you to go out there and lay it on the line. The mental mistakes were another area. Basically, I was under the impression if you were to miss a sign in the big leagues, you were gone. That was how serious that type of stuff was, the attention to detail. And I haven't seen that for many, at least the last couple of years. One area that I wanted to ask you about, this is not so much Angels, it's really more broad, but I've had some spirited debates with a friend of mine who has risen to the ranks of a bench coach in the major leagues, but he's told me it's more about the process these days. And I said, what are you talking about? It's about winning. The big leagues, it's about winning. And he said, no, you're wrong. It's about the process. And I've talked about it on the show a few times, but I think you might be qualified if any of that makes sense. The big leagues to me is only about one thing. At least that's the way it was taught to me. We're there to win. We're there to win a World Series. Only one team does every year, but that is the goal. And then the minor leagues are for development and the process, in air quotes. Can you expand on that a little bit if you have any thoughts?
Yeah, he didn't finish the statement. I used to say the process is fearless, meaning that if you stick with a process or the process, whatever that might be, whatever that means to you, that would then permit you to attack a situation fearlessly, because you've done all the right things in order in advance of the moment, and there should be some comfort involved in that. So that's where the process, me and Kenny Revisit talked about that a lot. Kenny didn't necessarily like that phrase as much. The process is fearless, but to me, it made all the sense in the world, because if I stay with my process, I'd never be concerned about taking chances. The last part that they're omitting is, if you stick with the process and build these building blocks annually, to me, that would lead to a pile of wins, because that meant to me that you're systematically doing the right things on a daily basis. You are eliminating mental mistakes. That's what physical mistakes have big part in the game. Mental mistakes have no part in our game. So if you stay with the process and build on that, meaning that, A goes before B goes before C, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you do that daily, then that's going to permit us to put that nice pile of victories that keep adding up as the season goes on. So if you just want to focus and rely on the process, it's like the analytical world. Analytics provides a safety net for decision making. So if you just stick to the analytics and it concludes that you don't do well, if you just stay with it for a while, eventually it's going to work out. The same with these people. If you're talking about the process standing alone provides a safety net for not being successful, because I got a process, I'm staying with it, and thus at some point it's going to work out. There's a part of that that is true. However, when you become satisfied with just that, and that is the problem. My only concern is that I work my process well, and there's no real concern about winning. Then you've totally misconstrued that's what we're talking about right there. So I think a fearless process done well on a daily basis leads to winning, because it leads to not being concerned about making mistakes. I have done my prep. The hay is in the barn, as Kenny used to say, and I could go out there and play, balls out, not worried about making mistakes. If it's the right baseball, if it's right to throw behind the runner at first base with play runner on first and second, say for instance, double play situation still in order, but this guy at first base is getting huge leads. It's a great time for the catcher to back pick in order to keep him closer so that we can complete a double play and not get my shortstop killed. Now, if the catcher makes that throw and it goes down the right field line, I'm not upset. It was the right thing to do in that moment. Runner on third base, infield in, okay? And this runner's taking this enormous secondary lead at third base in order to try to get a jump and go. That's another great time to back pick at third base. As an example, if that ball goes down the left field line, I'm not upset, because it was the right thing to do in the moment. And that's where analytics really falls short, because none of that is taught.
Joe, what's the toughest part of the game to coach currently? It seems like pitching has an incredible amount of resources, and hitting is always frantically trying to catch up. And most hitting coaches are lasting under 2 years right now.
Stop blaming them, please. If you want better hitters, either draft them or buy them. You know who good hitters are. It's really hard to take a guy that has not really been successful and make him successful on a major league level. Number one, analytics absolutely slants towards the pitching side of things. It's a proactive part of the game. The hitting is the reactive part of the game. Hitters, and not only that, I mean, with the velocity that where it is right now, and the sharpness of breaking balls, having to commit sooner in order to get your swing started against certain kind of velocities, makes it even more difficult. It's just more difficult. It's a very difficult thing to do. So stop blaming hitting coaches. Blame your process. When is somebody going to start blaming the acquisitional process? That's really what it comes down to. When you rely on hitting coaches to take somebody that's deficient, one of the most efficient things and most difficult things to do is to teach the discerning between balls and strikes, organizing your strike zone. That's not easy. When we were there in 2002 and we won, that was something that I was into. If you go back and read all the stuff that I wrote before then, I was about balancing my walks to strikeouts. That was a big thing for me among my hitters. A two-strike approach, a really big thing. I call it the B hack. Really big thing about what I did as a hitting coach. That is not necessarily taught anymore. So when you're constantly trying to get hitting coaches to take somebody who really is not, a lot of it's just not ready to be there, keep them in the minor leagues a little bit longer, supply the minor leagues with more efficient and better hitting coaches as opposed to just an iPad or data and information or video, because that's really what it comes down to. I had Merv Retman, I had Benny Hines. Gosh, I had so many, Bob Clear, I had so many great hitting coaches that I came up with, Rick Down, and was able to pick their brains. And they're the guys that made me a better, as I was hitting coach in the minor leagues for 7 years. To just rely on data information and the like, and consider yourself a hitting coach, and that's what they're relying upon right now, to me is absolutely wrong. Criticize your acquisitional process. Go through that first before you start criticizing coaches, because a lot of times the acquisitional process, which is where I would want to use analytics more than anywhere, would be in that, because that's where you can really comp and compare in November, December. Look under the hood. What are we missing on this guy? What does that guy have that we're missing? That's where you want it. Season in progress. Trust me, it is so overrated when the season begins. It's accurate with defense, no question. Give it to me. I want to know where to play my shortstop against Mark Trumbo. Absolutely, I do. And I'm telling you what, it's going to be very successful. And I want, where shall I shift with 2 strikes? What kind of adjustment does he normally make with 2 strikes? It's there. Pitching, yes. Where do I want to attack Mark? Then the strikes. So where do I want to attack him with 2 strikes? And this is individually versus right-handed and left-handed pitchers. And the same thing on where do I want to play my shortstop? It all goes against righties and lefties. Things change. Everything fluctuates just based on handedness too. So there's certain components of this that are really accurate, and I want, absolutely, I want, give it to me versus what we're doing. But then there's the nebulous part of it. And when you start like before the game, tell me what relief pitchers can or cannot pitch and where you want me to slot him all the time. My starting pitcher, the 3rd time through the batting order, I got to pull him out. Why? If he's pitching really well. Why has that not been nurtured in the minor leagues? We've taught the guy to go the 3rd time through and have him understand maybe you got to hold back something the 1st time through the batting order in order to like really feel comfortable the 3rd time through the batting order. And why? How about just emptying the tank in the first couple 3-4 innings? Because all I want is elevated velocity with a lot of spin, and there's no pitchability talked about whatsoever. There's so many discrepancies with this. And then after all, if it all came down to his analytical approach, why would any team be under 500? There should be like just one big major leagues worth of 500 if the information is always so good. And that's where it comes down to the acquisitional process. That's it. I mean, nobody talks about this stuff, but that's really where it's at.
I would agree 100%. I can answer those questions on my personal scouting and how to pitch me as well without an ounce of analytics experience. Right. Taught me a lot of that. Jared and I actually we were talking about going deeper into games on the pitching side and having a 3rd pitch and a word command, which has all but disappeared as catchers set up down the middle now. By and large, and there's a lot of goofy stuff going on. This question, though, is about where have all of the ex-players gone on coaching staffs? I'm wondering if front offices view the majority of ex-players, is there a stereotype of them being outdated? Are they not hip to the new protocols with the weighted balls and, batting tees, if anyone remembers what those are? By the way, most really good hitters use one, and I was a big proponent. But to each their own. I just don't see ex-players being hired. I see guys from the outside, from facilities and other places that really haven't earned their stripes. Getting promoted to the major leagues ahead of guys that have been toiling away for a long time trying to earn their shot. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's kind of insulting in a lot of ways. And my biggest concern is who's passing the game along, which we're just talking about with the ex-players as coaches. Who is passing the game along? That was so vital to me. And I know I get some kickback on all this stuff where people will get annoyed when I say things like this because times have changed. Oh, really? The moment you stop thinking experience, feel, and intuition matter, you're setting yourself up for failure. Absolutely. Um, on a minor league level right now, which is really considered kind of almost like a courtesy, just to like park some guys for a couple of years, and development really isn't part of it. That's why you see all these orchestrated pre-game batting practices and stuff starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Does nothing but tire guys out. These are major league players. They're not A-ball or double-A guys that you're trying to get to the big leagues. I'm so against the orchestrated, choreographed pre-game on a daily basis. I can't even begin to tell you. I prefer guys coming to the ballpark later. I prefer less work before. I prefer a rested mind and body going into a major league game with adequate amount of time allotted for getting loose and whatever study you need. I promise you, Shohei does not need these volumes of analytical information before every game. I promise you that's not true. I've heard recently, I mean, like last night at dinner, and I knew this to be true, like major league guys will go like into different cities, former major league players, star players with different organizations, and they'll go in and they'll hang out by the batting cage or be there at spring training for a bit. As they get there, they're immediately told, okay, while you're here, please, we don't want you to speak to any of the hitters about anything about hitting and pitchers. Please, love having you here. It's wonderful to have you. You're great, but do not speak to our pitchers about anything regarding pitching mechanics, methods, whatever that you might have. We really don't want that. True. It's happened. This is not all made up stuff. This is true. I recently befriended a lady by the name of Laura Huang. I got some information about a book she recently wrote. You already know. She's a professor at Northeastern University in Boston. Fascinating woman, and her book is great. And pretty much it really comes down to she's advocating for and defending experience, intuition, gut feel especially. She's defending it, and she's got examples and talked to CEOs, COOs, CFOs, all the heads of different corporations throughout, and defending the fact that these really do exist. This other sense or ability to recognize what's the right thing to do in the moment exists outside of math. And it's a really well played book. It's a great read. I'll wake up some mornings and I'll have a thought. I'll write down this long elongated text or email, and I'll send it to her. And I want her feedback. I want to know what she thinks about it. And so her explanation and her research is so clear on where experience falls in intuition, and gut feel falls in high level decision making, and how important it is to have that independent of math. Listen, I always want the numbers. Give them to me. Throw me that stack. Give me reams of it, but just permit me then to cull it down, and then permit us as a coaching staff to cull it down to the point where we then distribute it among our players, who we know who can handle stuff and who cannot. Meetings can be laborious and boring. It's a 162 game season. You need to cut that time element down. You need to. That's it. I mean, everybody, they're all working, every organization is working from the same sheet of music, because it's pretty much a competition among front offices, probably even more so than it's a competition on the field. That's where it's gotten to. So I will argue this with anybody, anytime. I'm looking for that first group that comes back and incorporates tried and true methods with the incorporation of new data and stuff. But at the end of the day, one voice should be heard in a dugout, on the field, in the clubhouse. The manager has been kind of castrated to a certain level. And right now, the front office has really ruled the roost. Managers have turned into middle managers. They no longer have the same authority to say what they think when they want to say it, and express it the way they want to, because they have to run it through this sieve, this of information, that dilutes or extrapolates information down through the bottom, that eventually is permitted or not permitted to be said. Truth. That's all truth.
Speaking of managers, Joe, the Angels just hired Kurt Suzuki. And
I love Zook.
what are the challenges of being a first-time manager? Because teams seem more willing than ever to go with youth and let's be honest, cheap. They're saving a bunch in salary. What are the challenges of a guy like Kurt Suzuki coming into this situation?
Well, first of all, it really is a classic contemporary method of leadership, which is control over empowerment. I've definitely concluded that. There was a time when I was coming up, any job I got, even as a youngster, I was empowered to do my job. Larry Himes was my first scouting director. And tell you what, he was in LA and I was over here and I was over in Mesa. And regardless of that separation, he permitted me to do my job, but he definitely monitored my job every day, made me send in a week's worth in advance. Where am I going? Who am I going to see? I had to write down who the scouts were at every place that I went to, blah, 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 whatever. But when it came to writing my reports, I wrote my reports based on his guidance, like pointing things out to me. But at the end of the day, when I saw Timmy Salmon or Chad Curtis or Jackie Howell or Kirk McCaskill or all these guys I was involved with in signing, I got to write my own report. That was my report based on the stuff that I had learned as a player. And then with Larry, Luke Cohenauer, and all these dudes, Lloyd Christopher, all these great scouts, Gene Thompson, that I met with. So I was never coerced into putting something down. It was always my stuff. And when you learn how to grow your own stuff, then you actually know things. When you're always appeasing, ameliorating somebody else in charge, being that is controlling you, you never really learn. You don't know what you know. You don't really know anything. You just know you're a regurgitator. And so that's that. So that's part of why the younger generation is being hired without experience. Number two, I like Kurt a lot. Having said all that, we had a great relationship there as a coach, manager, and catcher. He was wonderful to exchange ideas with daily. He's a really good game caller. He's fearless on the field, man. Solid, man. Go out to the mound, talk to him. Everything was great. All that was in order. All that was in place. First time manager for me, you know what that was? Idaho Falls, 1981, 27 years of age. I had 32 players on my team. 8 of them spoke Spanish only, and I was it. I didn't have a first base coach, third base coach, pitching coach. The year of a strike, who came into town? Mike Port came into town. Preston Gomez came into town. Warren Spahn was our minor league pitching coordinator. And I guess, Merv Redmond was the minor league hitting coach at that time. That was it. So you're in Idaho Falls, 32 dudes. We got stopped. We're going into Canada, 11 o'clock or whatever at night. There was nobody at the border there to check the passports of our kids. We had to spend the night there at the border. Okay. That was the minor league baseball. That's what we did. And you had to somehow figure that out. And you had to work through that. The time that Tommy Kochman, I was with them, they're going to Eugene, Oregon, their rooms weren't ready because we drove all night from Boise, get there like 7, 8 in the morning, rooms aren't ready. I happened to be with them and I went on the bus. I didn't fly because I needed to be on the bus. So I said, let's go. We went over to the Oregon coast. I slapped down an American Express card, which I had no money at that time, but I knew I was going to expense it. And then you had the Boise Hawks staying on a beautiful hotel on some kind of beach in Oregon. These are the kind of, I know that's not baseball, but it means everything. It means everything. You have to learn how to create in a very negative situation. So that's the only way I can compare what Zook's going through is I got to go back to 81 with Dickie Schofield, Devon White. Those are my big guys on that team. And what that was like, no pitching coach, no first base coach, no throwing regular BP, throwing extra work, whatever. So that's the difference. And then when you do that, you grew up knowing what you know. I use that phrase a lot, but it's true. You can't be a regurgitator. There's too many regurgitators in the game. People really don't know truly what they think they know or what they regurgitators say because they haven't lived it. And so when I say it's kind of insulting, I'm not hammering whomever is in that position. I want Zook to be successful. I want the fellow Vidiello. I want all these guys to be successful. But if you're asking me honestly what I think about it, if I retrace my history and I knew how important all these steps were to me, I could have never have helped the Cubs win the World Series. Never.
Idaho Falls, the old ballpark.
Yeah.
What
How
a
about
dump.
Correct. Absolutely.
But there were many of those, and you had
Yes,
to fight your way out of it. A saying
right.
that often heard: "If you don't like it, get better." You know, the
That's
Bruce
right.
Hines, and
Jeter.
you've already answered this, so I'll pivot a little bit. In Instruction League, we used to, and I think maybe you were part of this, have to write down if you were an adder, a subtractor, or a neutral. If you weren't part of that, you probably might agree with it, but it was self-evaluating for minor league players. And I always put neutral for, I was talking to Abe Flores the other day about it. Hopefully, people thought I wasn't too delusional. At one point, I did think I turned the corner and maybe was capable of putting adder, but that was part of the cultural stuff that I saw coming up, that you needed to sometimes be very honest. And I think that's the feedback that always helped me the most, was brutally honest feedback. Even how you speak to people and come off. Apparently, came off as a know-it-all. And Craig Graybeck, in no uncertain terms, told me to figure it out and change that. And it seems in the game now that is very unlikely to happen. Players don't want the tough criticism. I think there's a fear they're going to, curl up and disappear on you. And it seems like a very challenging time to manage personalities, and especially with your background. And experiencing those tough places to fight your way out of. And now this culture, at least in my opinion, it's, I don't want to say soft, but it's different.
If I tell you the truth, you might not like me for a week or 10 days. If I lie to you, you're going to hate me forever. I recently went back to the Cubs convention, right? We were celebrating 2016. And I didn't know what to expect overall. I mean, I knew it was going to be a celebration. Everybody was going to be happy. The fans were going to be great. It was absolutely jammed. It was tremendous. But the part of it that really overwhelmed me were conversations individually with players from that team. Guys that maybe I was a little bit hard with in 2016, or guys maybe that I did not concede to all the time and stood my ground. these guys came up to me during this time and were absolutely blew me away in a magnificent way, and conceded that I was right and maybe they were wrong. And that to me is like, that's the validation. If you're looking for it, which I never do, but if you are, all that tells you is like, just keep doing what you're doing, which more than likely I would. But when you hear it from some really, good players too, I'm not just talking about bench guys. I'm talking about some guys. And so when your stuff is validated, and happened with the Rays too, after I left the Rays, I got that kind of feedback from the guys with the Rays too. So I thought about this several years ago, and the phrase I just gave you, if I tell you, excuse me, if I tell you the truth, you might not like me for a little bit, but if I lie to you, you're going to hate me forever. So I like, okay, what's the best coach? What's the best major league coach? Again, the word fearless major league coach, a guy that's able to have tough conversations. That is a great major league coach. He doesn't have to have a PhD or whatever in hitting or pitching or whatever. If he shows up every day, works hard, and is an open communicator and speaks freely and openly and honestly with my players, this guy's a good coach, because that's what you need. You don't need to dissemble. Don't take the truth and soften it up or make it appealing to whomever you're speaking with. Now, honesty without compassion could equal cruelty, but that has to happen outside of the athletic world or professional sports. That happens with the fifth grader. If I'm talking to my daughter, or somebody outside, we're talking professional baseball players. So, honesty without compassion equals cruelty, knowing your audience. But when it comes to professional sports, if you don't have it, grow some thick skin. There's got to be a supplement for that. There's a supplement for everything else. My best coaches were the dudes that shot me straight, no doubt. And I had some tough coaches starting in June, midget football, to high school football, to college football, to baseball and the minor league. I had some Moose Stubing, Bob Clear. Dude, if you don't want to hear it, don't ask the question, because it's coming unfiltered, man, and it's coming right between your eyeballs. That's still the best method of communication. I'm talking about on a professional level. We do sugarcoat it too much. Best coaches are Brian Butterfield, stud, absolute stud. Mickey Hatcher, Buddy Black, Pepe, Ron Renicky might be the best ever. You ask Rags a question, be prepared to have your hair parted if he disagrees with you, and that's just the way it is.
Okay, let's turn our attention to the World Baseball Classic. All of our World Baseball Classic coverage is brought to you by our friends at Fox One, which is live. Stream all your Fox favorites together in one place, including all WBC games over the next few weeks. And after that, the best MLB action all season long. Well, the U.S. kicks off its WBC Friday against Brazil in Houston. And Joe, I've seen some players on this year's team calling this group the, quote, best collection of U.S. talent ever assembled. Knowing Mike Trout as you do, how much does this burn Mike Trout, who was the captain of the last WBC team, knowing he's not a part of this?
Well, there's got to be a part of him absolutely that's got to be upset about it, but there's also got to be a part of him that, like, come on, man, I need to stay healthy this season too. I mean, he's already done that. It's one of those things, you've already been there, done that. I know they didn't win necessarily, but um, gosh, I mean, after all, it's about playing the last game of the season and winning it more than it's playing the last game of the WBC and winning it. I'm sorry, but I listen. It's kind of a cool little gig that we do right now, but I don't get overwhelmed by it at all. Um, as a baseball purist, for me, it's about jockeying your team into position to get to the playoffs, and like I said, play the last game of the year and win it. That's really what we should be focusing on. I'm always concerned about ramping up too quickly. I am. Always thought spring training should be a slow dance and not this fast dance or break dance that it's become when the WBC pops up. So I just think it's wise for him not to be. Maybe make him an honorary captain, have him show up, but I mean that doesn't serve any really purpose. Just let them play, Mike. You take care of yourself and get ready for the season, and get as many games under your belt as you possibly can, and help get the Angels back on the right path. That to me would be my main motivation, I believe. So that's how I see it.
From the WBC through the World Series to the World Cup to NASCAR and IndyCar, with Fox One, you get it all live. Start your 7-day free trial today. Offers are subject to change. Download Fox One today and stream the World Baseball Classic live March 6th through 14th. Go to fox1.com for complete terms and conditions. Fox One, streaming now. Well, Joe, one of your many claims to fame is that you're the only manager in Major League history, modern day, to intentionally walk a batter with the bases loaded twice to Josh Hamilton in 2008 and Corey Seager in 2022. You won both of those games with the Rays in 8 and Angels in 2022. How do you reflect on those decisions?
Well, yeah, the Josh Hamilton could not have been hotter. Could not have been hotter, and he would have tied the score by pitching to him. And I definitely, absolutely believed he would have tied the score. I mean, intuition, experience, wisdom, whatever you want to call it, that came to bear in that moment. I know Grant Balfour didn't like it because Grant was actually a reverse split guy. He was really good against lefties. But I think Marlon Byrd was on deck and had Danny Wheeler in the bullpen. And Danny had been really good against righties. So we just made the move, and obviously it worked. And so we put them within a grand slam away of beating us, I believe the actual outcome would have been. So anyway, that falls under the category of Dodger mania, where you do the right thing and don't worry about answering a difficult question. That's really where it comes from. And that was see, when you have a feel of freedom in the dugout, if you feel freedom and supported by your front office, you do things like that. And when you don't feel supported, it's more difficult, although I would have probably done it anyway. But it matters, man. That's why it's so important in today's world, especially the GM, whomever's up top, president, whatever that head guy is, the manager has to feel that support. Now, however, having said all that, managers today are rarely going to go rogue. They're going to follow the script, and the script is written before the game. Trust me. So anyway, that was that. The second one, Seager. Now, this goes back to prep before the game. Our one line before the game was, we're not going to let Corey Seager beat us, right? That was it. That was the proclamation. And okay, so does that mean I back off because the bases happen to be loaded? Do I back off right there? Again, there was easily, I could see 4 points right there. He was hot. Dude, when that guy got hot, he was one of the best young left-hand hitters I've seen in a bit.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we did that. Now, we didn't work out necessarily, but we only gave up 3 runs and not 4 runs in that inning, if I remember correctly. And eventually came back and won it. And here's the other part about it. When you do crazy stuff like that and you succeed, you know what that does in the clubhouse? I mean, the guys absolutely go nuts in a good way. So I'm not looking for attention. I'm not looking for anything other than I'm relying on the years that I spent in the game and my perception, my feel in that moment, what's the right thing to do, my intuition, what's the right thing to do right here, and not run away from it because there's a tough question to answer.
Were you inspired by Buck Showalter intentionally walking Barry Bonds with the bases loaded in 1998? And do you remember what then Diamondbacks pitcher Brian Anderson said after that game?
I do not, but I love BA. BA took BA with me to the Rays. And I think, was it an out, right? Was it a base hit to right, or was it an out? I can't remember what happened.
I can't remember either.
The next hitter. I wasn't inspired by that. My inspiration managerially, a lot of it came from Gene Moth, quite frankly. And that's when I was with the Angels. Gene never went to or won a World Series, but one of the sharpest minds I've ever been around, along with Whitey Herzog. Those 2 guys to me were the epitome of a Major League Baseball manager. I was so fortunate because Gene used to give me a lot of latitude. You're talking about empowerment over control. In spring trainings, Gene had me run the bunt plays because he saw me run them instructionally the year before. I liked the way I did it. So I got the Sensei, Gritchy, Rodney, Booney, and I think Burley at shortstop. I'm running bunt defense, and I didn't think anything of it because I was too naive.
Well, the Brian Anderson was the starting pitcher that day. And after the game, he said of Buck Showalter, "That guy has got elephantitis of the nuts." Still one of my favorite quotes of all time. And Mark's gonna close the show with another question.
Okay,
go ahead, Mark.
Well, he's going to say a statement first. You mentioned Grant Balfour. Still need a translation on what he was cussing me out. I got him probably more than he got me.
You don't understand Australian?
All I could make out was I think he called me a washing machine or something. And Alfredo Griffin was serving as, trying to make sense of it as well. Next day, Bob Melvin, strangely, came up and apologized to me. I know Grant was very, very passionate, as are nearly every Australian that I've played with. So there's just an aside. But what's a rule change that they could do right now to make baseball more watchable, more strategic? You've talked about innings limits, the 3-batter minimum, automated strike zones, other things. What are your thoughts? Is there one change in particular that you're passionate about you think would help the game?
Yes, eliminate a lot of those strategical maneuvers. 3-batter minimum, get rid of it. Bigger bases, limiting throwovers, get rid of it. What's the other one I don't like? 3-batter minimum. Runner on second base, get rid of it. Don't need it. So it would be addition through subtraction, get the real game back. There was only one rule change that was necessary, and it's been proven out, and that is the pitch clock. And with that, the evolution of the pitch comm, where pitches are called more quickly because of the little device. Those were the only two changes that were absolutely necessary in baseball. The other stuff, think about it, eliminates strategy. And so managerially speaking, it's kind of been subtracted lesson what a manager has to think about during the course of a game. So that also is part of the appeal to having a less experienced manager in the dugout, because there's less for these guys to have to keep track of during the course of a game. So get rid of runner on second, get rid of 3-batter minimum, get rid of the big base, number of throwovers to first base. It has nothing to do with anything. It's never been about the length of the game. It's always been about the pace of the game. So when you start messing with strategy, then yeah, you are going to minimize the abilities of a manager in a dugout. Furthermore, to me, sorry boys, I love the National League game. I grew up in the American League game. I'm telling you right now, it's more fascinating. It's more intellectually stimulating. And I know, double switch with big. Trust me, get in the dugout. Get in the dugout when get in the dugout in a playoff game. When you bring in Aroldis Chapman against the Dodgers, what is it, the 7th or 8th inning, and you move the batting order 8 spots in order to make sure that he's going to be out there the next inning regardless. And what happens? You get the bases loaded and 2 outs, and here comes Aroldis to the plate. And I think it was like 3-2 or whatever. It might have been tied. And here comes Miguel Montero. Miggy, go hit for him. Knowing that if this doesn't work, I don't know if my bullpen can hold up right now. Boom. 2-strike pitch from Blanton. And Blanton was good against lefties. Blanton had that cutter. That might have been the loudest home run I ever heard at Wrigley Field. I'm just talking about the actual contact. And then, of course, the explosion from the fans afterwards. There's so many more interesting tidbits in that. I'm telling you, listen, this plug and play kind of stuff is not fascinating to me. The part of the allure of the game has been mitigated by all this. And again, think about it. Like I said earlier, analytics provides a safety net for decision making, okay? Because we're always going to rely on the pre-game math to choreograph the game. One reason why the World Series was so interesting to a lot of people last year, because a lot of the analytics stuff went boom. It exploded, and the guys really had to manage both sides, and it was really fascinating and interesting to watch finally. It wasn't a analytically created World Series. So think about all that. The best changes you could be would be addition through subtraction. We didn't need all those things in the first place. All we needed was the clock. And furthermore, I'd like to see a regeneration of the minor leagues. I'd like to see the game. I'd like to see more time spent with the nurturing of players by the time they get to the big leagues, that they know exactly what to do and handle situations, handle adversity. Just because a guy hits a couple homers in the minor leagues doesn't mean he's ready. I mean, there's a complete game to be played out there that's being absolutely abused and not concerned about. How about the Milwaukee Brewers last year? Ask Murph.
Yeah.
Murph is outstanding. And look what the Blue Jays actually played a better game last year too. Murph right now, and I stay in touch with him. He does it in a way that I think any real baseball lifer and a real baseball aficionado could appreciate. That's how it's supposed to look, the way the Brewers are doing right now.
All right. With that, we're going to close today's show. Joe Maddon, former Halos manager. Always a joy to catch up with you. Really appreciate your time. Please like and subscribe. And that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time on Halo Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network.